Hello, good morning. You've tuned into Power Breakfast coming live from CNBC TV 18. I'm Vinny Motiwala. With me is Vamakshi Dore as well. Vamakshi, very good morning to you. And today we're seeing some bit of a positive cue coming in from the Asian markets. Yesterday, a bit of a muted day for the Indian market.
Well, absolutely, Vinny. It started off on a very weak note in line with some of its Asian peers, but we saw very good recovery coming in the second half, especially. It's almost a 200-point recovery that we saw. So let's see what today's session holds. As of now, it does look like a positive start.
Hoping for that recovery to continue and hoping for a better start coming in for the Indian markets today. But starting with the top headlines for the day and starting on the US front. Now, the stocks on Wall Street and ended Monday's trading session higher as investors shrug off increasing tensions in global trade. The Nasdaq added more than 120 points at close and S&P 500 and the Dow. This also finished higher with modest gains.
Stocks in the Asia-Pacific region start on a positive note, mirroring Wall Street moves. Despite mounting global trade frictions, the GIFT Nifty is indicating a higher start for the Indian market.
Crude oil prices climbed on supply concerns as producer group OPEC Plus decided not to accelerate plans to hike output. Gold prices also climbed to over 3-week high as the US dollar weakens and geopolitical and trade tensions mount.
The Indian government issues guidelines for a scheme aimed at boosting electric car manufacturing, offers tax incentives on imports provided they commit to a minimum investment of 4,150 crores and agree on starting production within 3 years from the date their proposal is approved.
Very optimistic about prospects of the trade deal between United States and India, says U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, adds that the deal should be done in the near future. Those were the top headlines for the day, but let's look at what the Asian markets are doing. Like I mentioned before as well, Asian markets have opened up a bit on that positive footing. We are seeing Taiwan index that's up 1.4%. Hang Seng is trading with gains of almost 1%. ASX 200, Kospi, Nikkei, all of them have opened up on the positive footing. China, a bit of a muted opening that's coming in right now, but it's not a bad opening there as well. Overall, Asian markets have largely opened up on the positive footing. And Vamakshi, this is despite those trade talks that are going on between US and China. We're hearing a lot of exchange coming in. China has also given some commentary saying that, no, they are not, on bad terms with US. They're saying that US is dealing it. But a lot of action happening on that front. That's what we keep an eye out on. But that's the Asian market. Strong footing as of now. Nifty implied open also indicating a slight bit of a positive start is what we're watching out for from the Indian markets. 28 points uptick. Let's see if we see this further recovery momentum that we saw in the second half of the trading session continue going forward as well.
Well, absolutely, Vinny. Of course, there are, a lot of back and forth with regards to the trade talks. But let's also recap what happened actually in the US market. In the US market, Wall Street ended higher, eking out moderate gains in the first trading session in June. The S&P 500 ended 25 points higher. Dow Jones added 35 points and the tech-heavy Nasdaq gained almost 128 points in Monday's session. We now have CNBC's Bertha Coombs, who gets us a wrap of all the action on Wall Street.
U.S. markets were up across the major indexes on the first day of trading in June as Wall Street managed to shake off increasing tensions over global trade. The Dow rising 35 points, the S&P 500 was up 24, while the tech-heavy Nasdaq gained 129 points. President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping are likely to speak this week, according to a senior White House official telling CNBC on Monday. The expected discussion follows a series of flare-ups between Washington and Beijing that threatens to derail a tentative trade agreement that the two economic superpowers reached weeks ago in Geneva. China on Monday refuted President Trump's claims that it had broken the deal and accused the U.S. of breaching deal terms. And sports betting stocks fell on Monday after Illinois lawmakers approved a budget that raises taxes on wagers, making investors worried that other states could do the same. DraftKings dropped more than 6%. Flutter Entertainment and Roundhill Sports betting also fell. The measure passed by the Illinois lawmakers places a tax of 25 cents a wager on the first 20 million online sports bets made each fiscal year. It then doubles to 50 cents per bet after meeting that mark. Illinois Governor J.D. Pritzker issued a statement saying that he will sign the bill into law. That's what's happening here in the U.S. Back over to you in Mumbai.
Thank you so much for that. But that's all the global market action that we have for you all this morning. But how is this going to be impacting our Indian markets? What are we watching out for? How are we setting up for trade? Important stocks to watch out for? What's going to be happening in the world of F&O? We'll take you through all of that in our Power Press segment. And we have a team of research joining in with us. First up, I'm going to go across to Hormaz, who's here to tell us what are the cues we're watching out for in terms of the Indian markets today. Hormaz, slight bit of a positive start is what we're watching out for as of now, at least.
There's some optimism, yes, and that's also because of U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick mentioning earlier this morning that he's optimistic that a trade deal with India will happen pretty soon, and that's showing up on the GIFT Nifty as well. And the global cues are equally positive, if you can say that, because yesterday's session was a clear toss-up between positive domestic cues and negative global cues, and we played on both sides of that gallery. At the first half of the trading session, the Nifty fell to the lows of the day, but the good part was that we managed to defend 24,500 on the downside. Why 24,500 is important? Because we have not closed below that level since the 9th of May, which is the day before the ceasefire between India and Pakistan was announced, and since then it has managed to trade above that level on a closing basis consistently. And the part of this recovery in the second half of yesterday's trade was courtesy of the Nifty Bank, which is now on the cusp of a record high. It continues to outperform courtesy of the PSU banks, which were the best sectoral performers on Friday, were the best sectoral performers yesterday as well. So it is the Nifty Bank that continues to remain in focus more than the Nifty, because it is now closer to record highs. And since the fact that earnings are over, everything now goes back to global updates with the tariff and tariff-related developments. The rising oil prices, though, will need to be monitored because Brent is now at $65 a barrel. It continues to move higher, and these global cues will remain in focus until the RBI policy meeting later this week. Now, 24,524, which was Monday's low, becomes an important one to watch out for on the downside. And of course, 24,850 to 24,900 on the upside is that congestion zone for the Nifty. Watch out for capital market linked names. They were outperformers yesterday. Watch out for Yes Bank ahead of the board meet. But for now, a slightly positive start is in the offing for Tuesday's session.
Well, thank you so much for that, Hormaz. Let's see what today's session holds. But let's move on to now Ria, who will list out the stocks to watch out for in today's trading session. Good morning, Ria.
Good morning, ma'am. Actually, let's take a look at the stocks to watch out for today. First up, we have Biocon, since they've received an approval for a diabetes drug called liraglutide in India. So watch out for that one. We also have Torrent Power. They've signed a long-term LNG supply agreement with BP Singapore for up to 0.41 MMTPA from 2027 to 2036. We also have two stocks in focus on the back of some fundraising activity. There's Grasim India. The board has approved a fundraise of up to rupees 1,000 crores. And for Man Industries, the board has approved a fundraise of up to rupees 3,000 crores through a preferential allotment. Moving on to Zinka Logistics, sources have said that a block deal has been launched on this front. Quick Routes International is likely to sell 9% stake at a floor price of rupees 405. And lastly, keep your eye out on Frontier Springs as well. They've bagged an order worth rupees 92.6 crores from a rail coach factory in Raebareli. So keep your eye out on all of these stocks today.
Okay, Ria, surely we'll be keeping an eye out on all those stocks today. But let's go across to Sudarshan, who's here to tell us what is going to be happening in the world of F&O. Good morning, Sudarshan.
Good morning, Vinny. So it was a smart recovery in the last hour that we saw yesterday, especially in the broader market. We saw Nifty Midcap Index gaining almost 600 points from day's low. And at the end, it was a close with minor cut for Sensex and Nifty, while it was a green close for both Nifty Bank and Nifty Midcap Index. For today, GIFT Nifty is indicating a subdued start as of now. As far as flows are concerned, FIs continue to sell. Even yesterday, they have sold almost rupees 2,600 crore, but DIs have bought more than rupees 5,300 crore. And in the index futures, two FIs have sold more than rupees 900 crore, and they continue to add short positions. Yesterday, addition was almost 5,900 contracts, and with this, FI long exposure reduced to 18.7%. On the option front, we continue to see the action in a narrow range. On the call side, 24,700 call has seen addition of more than 20 lakh shares, and 25,000 call has seen addition of almost 11 lakh shares. On the put side, 24,500 and 24,600 put were active ones, and support for Nifty we are seeing around 24,500, and resistance remains around 24,900. One stock remains in the band, and that is Manappuram Finance.
Well, thank you so much for that, Sudarshan. Let's slip into a very short break now. Up next, we get you updates from the US-India Strategic Partnership Forum's Leadership Summit in Washington, D.C. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching Power Breakfast on CNBC TV 18. The US-India Strategic Partnership Forum is hosting its leadership summit in Washington, D.C. And the big talking point is the prospects of a India-US trade deal. Let's go across to Parikshit Luthra, who is joining us live from Washington, D.C. Tell us more, Parikshit.
Well, Howard Lutnick, the US Secretary of Commerce, said that he was optimistic about an early trade deal with India. He said that there are a lot of countries who are trying to get an early trade deal done with the US, and India is among them. And US appreciates the efforts that India is putting into that. He said that if you come for a trade deal with US between the 4th of July and the 9th of July, that will just be piling things up. But India definitely is in a sweet spot. Having said that, he also said that we want to bring down tariffs to a reasonable level. Tariffs of 100% on certain products lines is just not acceptable to the US administration. He also said that Donald Trump has been calling out India for buying military equipment from Russia. He also said that buying oil and defense equipment from Russia brushes the US the wrong way. And if BRICS make noises about challenging dollar hegemony, that is also something that's not going to go down well with the US administration. He also said that while Donald Trump stands for Make America Great Again, he also wants to take allies along. So, for example, the trade deal will ensure that manufacturing also comes back to US in certain key sectors, but at the same time, industry in India will also continue to flourish. So he's hinting at labor-intensive sectors such as footwear, textiles, furniture, which will continue to get a big access to markets in the US. He also said that US is expecting reasonable market access in India on agriculture. He said that there is a clear understanding among farmers and also the agriculture community that agriculture is a sensitive issue in trade. So the sensitivities are being kept in mind on both sides before coming to any arrangement on the trade deal. So a lot of top businessmen were expecting an early conclusion of the FTA, and possibly in the next few weeks, we could have an agreement on the early trade deal between India and the United States.
Look, I'll treat you incredibly kindly on the things that are really important to you, and you bring down your tariffs and give us market access, and let's find the proper place in the middle. And I think if you have the right person on the other side, and what happens is if they put a normal trade minister, it's an endless set of talking and no outcome, because they're used to saying this kind of deal will take 3 years, we'll get this done in 2 years. And that's not really fun for me. So the idea is when they put the right person in India, put the right person on the other side of the table, and we've managed, I think, to be in a very, very good place, and you should expect a deal between the United States and India in the not too distant future, because I think we found a place that really works for both countries. I think the United States wants to bring advanced manufacturing back to the United States of America. All right, that's a key industrial platform for us to bring back domestic manufacturing and reshoring in America. Right? So now there are enormous number of product categories that we are going to be delighted for India to produce. And what we're going to have is you'll sort of have a trade deal that says, look, these kind of industries would be great for India to produce. And in fact, there are enormous numbers of industries that we'd really like to go to India, right? And what happens is you create this sort of trade deal that puts India in a unique position, right? Because it'll have a special relationship with the United States. In certain industries, it will have a better tariff relationship than most other countries in the world, which means India will be the beneficiary of those kind of products.
Well, the USISPF also presented the 2025 Global Leadership Awards to distinguished business leaders. Arvind Krishna, Chairman, President and CEO, IBM, Kumar Mangalam Birla, the Chairman of Aditya Birla Group, and Hitachi's Executive Chairman for their outstanding contributions in strengthening the US-India-Japan economic partnership. From the sidelines of the event, Parikshit spoke to KM Birla, who believes a win-win trade deal would be beneficial for both the countries. Listen in.
Well, I think it was very heartening to hear Secretary Lutnick to start with, because he spoke about the close ties between India and the US, the fact that our Prime Minister and the President here are personal friends, and how that facilitates building a future together between the two nations. We've been investors in the US for about 15 years, if not a little more, invested about $15 billion already, and we are by far the largest Indian investor in the US. We've had a terrific experience, and like I was saying earlier, we intend to invest more going forward. There is a greenfield site that we're investing in Alabama by the name of Bay Minette. That's the name of the place. It's a $4 billion greenfield investment, and in fact, that is the largest greenfield investment we've made anywhere in the world, which just demonstrates our confidence and comfort of doing business in the US.
Right. Could you give us a sense of how do you plan to grow your revenues in the United States? Where does the business stand currently, and maybe in the next 5 to 10 years, how do you see it growing?
So I think, it's $18 billion just now in turnover. I can't give you precise numbers, but like I said, we have several investments that are ongoing. I talked about the Bay Minette one, that itself is substantial. So I think there's a concerted effort to, keep growth happening here in the US.
The US-India trade deal, which is on the anvil, how do you think this will increase investments in India and also make India a more attractive investment destination?
I mean, I can't tell exactly, but I think that if it's a win-win, I'm sure that would happen.
Okay, and finally, sir, amidst geopolitical headwinds, how do you see the India growth story?
I think our growth story is stronger than it's ever been before. I mean, we've just overtaken Japan to become the 4th largest economy in the world, as we all know. And I think that the stars are aligned for India. Multi-decadal growth for an economy as large as ours is, and that too at 6-7%, is huge.
Okay, on that note, we're going to slip into a very short break. We'll get you more cues in the world of commodities after the break, so stay tuned in. Welcome back to Power Breakfast on CNBC TV 18. Now, getting you the latest on Trump-related developments. And we have Dia joining in with us in a special segment, Trump Watch.
Big moves on the global stage this week. The White House says President Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping are likely to hold a much-anticipated phone call later this week. The conversation comes as trade tensions between the world's 2 largest economies remain high, with markets watching closely. Meanwhile, the Federal Reserve is weighing in. Chicago Fed President Austin Goolsbee says that if trade policy uncertainty is resolved, the central bank could begin cutting interest rates, signaling a more flexible monetary stance ahead. Meanwhile, the U.S. Department of Education is pausing its plan to garnish people's Social Security benefits if they have defaulted on their student loans, a spokesperson for the agency tells CNBC. The Education Department had earlier said that Social Security benefit offsets could begin as early as June. Turning to Europe now, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is calling on President Trump to approve more sanctions on Russia. Zelensky says stronger U.S. pressure is needed to force a full ceasefire, criticizing Moscow's offer of a short-term pause as nothing more than a game of rhetoric. In a related development, the White House says President Trump is open to a possible 3-way peace summit in Turkey with both Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Zelensky. The proposed talks, led by Turkish President Erdogan, aim to explore a diplomatic breakthrough in the ongoing conflict. And lastly, the Trump administration now plans to tap into the $400 billion Green Bank Fund to finance nuclear energy projects. The money will go towards smaller and advanced nuclear reactors, as well as geothermal power and critical mineral infrastructure, part of the administration's 2026 budget vision. That's all for today. Now back to you.
Well, thank you so much for those comprehensive updates, Diya. But moving on to the commodity space, then we now have Manisha Gupta joining us with all the updates from there. Good morning, Manisha.
Morning, and thank you for that, Ramakshi. Well, it has been a good surge when it comes to commodities. Gold especially gained 2.5% overnight. It's trading at a 3-week high. Silver prices gained 5% overnight. This is all on the back of safe haven buying. There is a bit of a risk aversion in the market, and the gold and silver seem to be taking cues from that. Well, you have seen Russia-Ukraine conflict escalating. There is renewed trade uncertainty between U.S. and China, and then weaker than expected economic data from U.S. and China also seems to be supporting gold and silver prices. But it's not just confined to precious metals. If you look at base metals, we've seen copper prices gain up by 5% overnight. The Brent crude price is also gained up by 2% overnight. The markets are looking at tangible commodity buying one. And then there are concerns about supply, especially coming in for crude, where Iran seems set to reject the U.S. nuclear deal proposal. There are supply concerns also coming in from Canadian wildfires because the production there has gone down. So overall, the weak U.S. dollar index and surge in commodities seems to be the theme in Asia right now.
Okay, Manisha, thank you so much for that, keeping an eye out on all those commodities there. But moving on to some weather-related updates, 36 people have died and over 5.5 lakh people have been impacted by the devastating floods and landslides that have gripped many northeastern states due to heavy rainfall. Assam is the state most affected, with 11 fatalities, and 10 major rivers were overflowing above the danger level, and 3.6 lakh people have been affected by the deluge in more than 19 districts, I beg your pardon. Meanwhile, according to a defense official, 3 army personnel were killed and 6 of their colleagues went missing after a landslide hit a military camp in Sikkim's Lachen district on Sunday evening.
Well, that's all we have on this edition of Power Breakfast, but don't go anywhere. Bazaar Morning Call comes up next.